Hello, Merrill. Can you hear me? Hello, Merrill. Can you hear me?
Yep. How's that sound?
Oh, I can't hear you. You can hear me though?
Yep, I can hear you. I can hear
Oh,
you.
I got my headset plugged in. That's switching over. All right. Can you hear me now? Or can I
Yes.
be breath? Okay,
Yep.
I hear you.
I can hear you. I hear you good.
Right. We've got 250 people registered.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Got
sent the
that.
invitation. 59 have registered.
59 registered. So we'll see what our show is then. So out of the universe, there's 200 and something registered.
Yep.
All right. And then so we're making notes of that just so we can see what our hit rate is. Now, this is not a what do you call it? This is not a pitch, right? If I read all the insides, this is information with basically at the end being able to tell them, hey,
Right.
This is what we do, right?
Yep, exactly. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I was looking back at my notes. Were you at the Intel REI Club like a year or two ago?
Yeah, you spoke here. We did a Friday, and we were talking about, you know what? Oh, well, no, we did a roundtable. You called it something else. It was a particular forum. You said, hey, you should come to my Fridays, and then for some reason I lost your email. We couldn't find it, but you've always been on our list of, when Cheyenne was talking to you about the special bonus, right, that all your members could get access to, that's
right
2.5 hours long, right? So we've always wanted to get in touch, and then when I got your email, I'm like, there he is. I knew there was somebody.
Well, I must have something with you because and maybe it was my podcast that I recorded back in 2020, because I was just looking at uploading our previous week's video up onto YouTube, and I came across, oh, look, I've got a recording for you already.
And it might have been the podcast referring to your Friday weekly, right?
Right.
So,
all right. Let's see. We're going to start to see people appear here now. Hello, Ashish. How you doing? Hello, Brooke.
Hello there.
Glenn, all the usual people coming in.
Awesome.
How do I say your assistant's name here?
Sky.
Okay.
But we tease her about it being ski.
I was gonna say skay or sorry.
Skiggy. Yeah.
Skiggy. All right. Let's hope we get a few more people in here. It's noon. They should start coming in. Maybe I'll check to make sure they. One problem that I'm having is I'm sending these out through Google Calendars, and I am now hitting the limit for the number of people that I could invite on a calendar invite, which is 250. So, let me see if people are registering that way last minute. And if so, I'll just forward them the Zoom link. Oh, we had one person register last moment. Most people, I think, though, are registering through Zoom. Hello, everybody. Welcome, investors. The Friday Alternative Investing Club, formerly known as the Intel REI Club.
Hey, Daniel.
Yeah.
Hey, FYI, so the mail that you sent out for, let's see, is it my confirmation of, or your, let's see, it was your registration email. Hey, go out and register. No, not that one. Sorry. It must have been the response.
I was using a new registration or new email service, Pulse Send.
Okay. So from Zoom, it was after my registration. So from Zoom was the confirmation mail. So at the bottom is a, add it to your ICS or your Google Calendar or your Yahoo Calendar or whatever. The Microsoft ICS works. The Google Calendar doesn't. Zoom crashes on it and says, I can't do it.
Really? So FYI. I had somebody else mention that to me too, and it's Zoom that's producing that file, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
I have I'm sure Zoom will fix that quickly, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not,
hundreds of
I'm not
thousands.
expecting you as the IT person to go solve it or whatever. I'm just letting you
Yeah,
know that
no.
if you do have like a disparate amount of people that for whatever reason, as you're transitioning, aren't necessarily like mapping like you thought they would, they may be hitting the same problem that I saw. So just more of an FYI
Okay.
than anything.
I did have more than one person tell me about that, and I just said, you know, it's on Zoom's end. I can't do anything about it.
Yep.
Hello, Gene. Hello, Ryan. Hello, Ashish. Oh, it's the ever-present John Doe. I always wonder who you are. He's been here for, I don't know, John Doe's been attending for a couple of years now.
And faithfully, right?
Yeah, no, can't complain. Bob and Brandon, hello. Christoph.
Hello.
All right, Henry, good to see you.
Hello.
I'm gonna mute every once in a while because the kids have gotten me sick again. Or maybe I got them sick. You never know. All right, so we'll wait just a few minutes for more people to join, and say about 5 after, we'll kick this off. Let's start off with a couple of club announcements. So first of all, I think that you all know that we are transitioning away from being the Intel REI Club. Next week is my official last week at Intel, so I won't be able to get email through Intel anymore. I assume you all have my business email address, my new business email address, goodsamaritancapital.com. That's where you'll be able to reach me from now on. And if you have any suggestions or topics that you want to hear about, feel free to either put them in the chat or say them now or send them to that email address. I always want to hear what's going on. We have a couple of interesting people that are coming up. We have Brian Bradley on asset protection. I'm looking forward to hearing him on that. He's going to be talking to us about how do we set up our LLCs so that we can protect our assets and limit our liabilities. And we have a couple of other people that are coming up in the near future here. If you know of somebody who would make a good speaker, please send me an email, or I actually have a form that I usually will put up there. In fact, I'll put it into the chat in just a moment, where you can submit a speaker who can come and be a Friday speaker. So some of our best speakers have come from people in this audience suggesting them and connecting it. So feel free to do that. And while we're waiting here for a few more minutes, does anybody have an open topic they want to bring up?
Hey,
And,
Daniel,
yeah.
general question. So I know these recordings, right? Is there a central place like YouTube where you plan to put that in?
Yeah.
So happen to miss.
Well, it's not that you've really missed it. It's that organizing it has been a lot of work. And so I've got every single recording we've ever done, with the exception of a couple in 2019.
Okay.
And I will be putting them all up on this link on YouTube.
Okay.
There are some people out there who also want Rumble. I had some problems. I wrote a script to actually automatically upload the videos to YouTube, and YouTube decided that a bunch of them were spam. So I have to sit there and manually do them through the browser, and then YouTube likes it, apparently. But one or two of them, including Mary Soldano's How to Use an SBA Loan to Buy Real Estate, were rejected several times. And it was a very frustrating process. They would send me a link to say, hey, if you think this was done in error, please click here. And I would click there, and it would literally pop up a box that says, you may not contest it at this time. Like, okay. So I did start putting them on rumble.com also, which is another video service. And I can send the link out to that as well.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Manisha says that they're looking for a good tax consultant who understands real estate investment along with W-2. This season is hitting us hard. So there are lots of people out there, and actually, that would be a great question to bring over to the Facebook group. Why don't you, Manisha, and I will post the Facebook group here as well. Why don't you post that in the Facebook group? I have my own personal CPA, Mark Perlberg. He's great. I don't know if he's for everybody, but I enjoy using him. There are probably lots of other good suggestions out there in our group as well. So put that on the Facebook group, which I will paste into the chat in just a moment. And any other opens before we get this started? All right. Boy, we've only got 36 today. That is.
There's a lot of people out, Daniel. It's Good Friday, so.
It is Good Friday.
True. Okay, I was gonna say we had 100 2 weeks ago. What's going on?
There's
Right.
a lot of people I know on vacation, so.
Yeah, I guess that's probably it. Ah, vacation. What's that? All right. Merrill, welcome to the group here. You're going to be talking to us about keeping your business and your personal credit up to date and in line and healthy, which I think is a timely topic. It's not one we talk about really that often in real estate investing. And so I'm looking forward to this. Why don't you take the show away?
Excellent. Well, thank you, Daniel, so much for Daniel and I were going back all the way to the middle of COVID, where we did a podcast together. And so it's wonderful to be back and be able to kind of share some of these important, powerful strategies to understand how to protect your personal and business credit during this recession, and to understand kind of the rules of engagement during this recession, because the rules, what makes a loan viable or what makes a borrower viable to get a loan does not change. The question is where are you on what we'll be calling a funding target? And so I'm going to share my screen now. Let's go to share the sound, and let's go to desktop 1. Very good. And then from here, we're going to take a look at desktop 1. All right, everybody see my big Get Fundable?
We do. We see your presentation now.
Very good. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is, where possible, put your questions in the Q&A versus the chat. The chat may vary, because I'm going to ask you questions. Raise your hand, type in yes or no, or this applies to me, etc.
Hey, you know what, Merrill? I don't spring for the webinar Zoom account, so we only have a chat.
All right, so put a big Q in the front of it so that we can go through, and because I'm happy to ask questions after we're done. This just might end up being 14 feet long, and I just want to make sure we don't lose any questions.
And Merrill, I will call those out to you, so I'll keep track of the chat and judiciously interrupt you, when it's appropriate, and keep track of those questions for you.
Yeah. So what's our time here? Because we may want to keep Q&A to the end, or we can take it in the middle. You tell me. What are we going to lose everybody after lunch? How's that work?
The meeting officially goes until 1 p.m. Pacific time, and I personally think it works best to take them as the talk goes on, but really that's up to you.
No, let's do it. I'm going to blaze through. Some of the questions may cause some great opportunities to discuss some strategies and not be able to finish the presentation. So let's get through this. First of all, the topic at hand is, how do we recession-proof our business? So we need to understand our personal credit. There are 2 unstoppable forces that are in play right now. Consider them tsunamis or mavericks. If you're a surfer, these are unstoppable. You have no control, no power over them. The question is, do we surf? Do we hang on for dear life on that surfboard, or are we crushed by the results of these 2 economic, or these 2 forces, right? One is economic. Lenders make money when they lend, number 1. The second way that they make money is with swipes. And they have created a culture, a lending culture, where they want to inspire, and believe it or not, they make the most amount of money from their swipes. So this is going to be a key and important fact we need to remember as we go through this. They make money when they lend and when you're swiping your card. So the question is, if there is money available for unsecured bank loans and lines of credit. And by the way, let me put a bracket here. We're not talking about anything you may have heard about paydex scores or business credit. I'm going to tell you right now, listen carefully. The top 40 banks in this country do not use your paydex score to qualify you, period. It does not happen. That hasn't happened since 2008, but that is what we're sold by operators who don't know how to pivot after 2008. So they keep telling us, get credit lines, get money in your EIN instead of your SSN. But none of those are bank loans and lines of credit, none of them. You will be personally guaranteed what we call cash lines and cash credit cards and that represent cash, not merchandise, not Staples accounts, not Lowe's accounts, not Uline or Granger or any of these schemes that are designed to help you build your paydex score, but the paydex score is not used in your funding for business loans and lines of credit. Is everybody with me? Give me a yes in the chat if you understand what I'm saying. I'm going to be throwing a great deal here at you, and a lot of these may be new to you. So I need to make sure that you understand where we're coming from. So paydex score, good. Don't worry about it, MN. If you haven't heard about it, it's a straw man credit score published by Dun & Bradstreet in order to help you improve a score that is not used by lenders. They're just selling you stuff, and you even get to tell them the trade lines you want to use in your business. Well, what's trustworthy about a credit score that you get to choose the positive trade lines? So that's what paydex is. Now, continuing to this the brute force of this economic condition is that you've been lied to about how to get approved. Now, we're going to do a deep dive into these lies shortly, but we need to understand that this tsunami is going to affect us. There's two principles you need to understand about lenders. You are either prey or you are their partner. Now, how do you know the difference between them? You are their prey if you're getting low value $5,000 to $20,000 credit approvals at 18 to 26% interest. You are prey. You're their partner if you're getting $50,000 to $100,000 bank loans and lines of credit at prime plus 7.75 to 1.5. That's the difference of having an education to know how to become a partner. We're interested in prime plus 0.75, prime plus 1 credit lines and business loans to augment and take down deals in real estate or growing your business, right? So how does that work? How to pray? Well, here's our funding target, and you are prey if your approval amounts are lower and your interest is 4 to 5 times higher than prime, right? And so the issue is that there's a lot of animosity between borrowers and lenders because you feel taken advantage of here. We feel like, okay, why is this 18 to 20%, 22, 26% interest? Because these outer approvals is the low-hanging fruit for lenders. But during a stressed economy, look at that graphic. During a stressed economy where you barely make this, they shrink the target, but they only shrink the outer kind of fuzzy edges of the funding tiers, because these are good when salaries are going up and when employment is super low and on the increase. When economic guidelines are powerful, then you get approved. But when there is stress, the bullseye does not change. The inner circles of funding approvals do not change. They just stop taking all of the non-partner approvals. So what worked in prosperous times, of course, then doesn't work during financially stressed times. And that's where we get to decide, do we want to, and all of our prey versus partner dynamics is based on your borrower behaviors. You're going to hear me. I'm going to beat the daylights out of that term. borrower behaviors. You may not have ever even heard of borrower behaviors, but that's the great business funding secret. So what do you have to do to become a partner? You've got to become fundable. You've got to get fundable so that you go from this to this. This right here is called fundability. And that's the term I'm going to be using. And fundability, when you're fundable, you are the perfect borrower and ideal bank customers so that you get the best approvals in any economy, guys. In any economy. So when they close that, when credit markets tighten, they still make money on when they lend. They still make money on open account swipes. So they're not going to stop lending, but they're going to get rid of all of the borrowers that they can't trust over time. The prey begins to the prey approvals begin to subside, and they focus on their long-term financial partners. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Say yes. Is this making sense? Are you with me, everybody? I'd like you to participate in this so that I can make sure I see what is happening in our group. Great. Thank you, Daniel. Dennis, yes. All right. So, well, there's three of us then. Glenn, thank you very much. All right, here we go then. Don, thank you. Now, so the difference between prey and predator is having someone that they trust. And what you have to know is how to qualify and turn that money spigot on that's sitting right in front of you. And learning how to become fundable does just that. It's about the tweaks in every form of learning, in every form of technology development. It's about iterations. It's about turning the focus. Let's use an analogy. How many of you have sighted in a rifle? Anybody sight in a rifle? Does anybody know how to has ever sighted in a rifle? Anybody? So do you move the target to sight in the rifle? Thank you, Glenn. Do you sight in the rifle by moving the target? No. Do you move the sandbag and move the rifle around until you hit? No. What you're looking through, your perception, you twist those little screws and turn those little gears to move the sight. The perspective changes. The target stays in the same place because those lenders are not going to move it. And your fundability is fixed. What changes is what you're doing differently, right? And that's what I did wrong. I totally get it. So let's go to unstoppable force number 2. How many of you hate full doc loans? Anybody hate full doc loans? Type yes. If you do not like full doc loans, or you maybe haven't even started, you haven't engaged outside money or bank money because you feel like there's going to be some negative outcome as a result, right? Thank you, William. So here's surprise: lenders hate full doc manual underwriting more than you do. It costs them gobs of money in order to have you bring all that documentation in. In fact, and I'll be sharing with you this in a moment, have a collaborative relationship with FICO, the author of the 3-digit credit score, FICO, and I found out in my meetings with FICO that every single one, that automatic underwriting is the thing of the future, is the wave, that is this tsunami. If we do not look good on paper, they trust your borrower behaviors over your documentation. I will say that again. They trust what they're measuring in your borrower behaviors way over your documentation, okay? And so, absolutely, Glenn, ninja loans are frightening. Now, but lenders are moving to automatic. Well, how many of you, raise your hands if in the last few years you filed an application online or in person and were approved or denied within 30 seconds to a minute? Anybody? Anybody? I'd like to get a count because this is really important about where we're going with this. Thank you, Dennis. So you guys, it's already happening. Brad, thank you. Now, a further question. Thank you, Anita and Henry. Further question. How many of you woke up one morning, went to your bank account or your credit line, credit card, and you found a higher limit, or you opened a piece of mail and it says, congratulations, free money. Type yes, please, if this is true. Free money, no inquiry, no income validation or verification, no financials, no nothing. They literally look at all those yeses. That is an automatic limit increase. That means to some level, your borrower behaviors were being measured in the background. They didn't ask you if you wanted a limit increase. They said, here's some free money. Now, here's the question. Yeah, William, yes, but it seems like a trap. It's not. Your borrower behaviors are allowing them to give you more money because they trust you. Automatic limit increases are indications that you could be a partner instead of prey. They trust you enough. Excuse me. So how do we, but the question is instead of being at effect, how do we take control of that? How do we actually make a bank give us those lines of credit? How many of you, raise your hand, how many, or say yes, how many of you would like a business line of credit to go from $50,000 to literally just 60, 65, 75, 85, 95, and 100, all on its own? How many of you would like to have what happens to your personal credit cards happen to business lines of credit? Glenn, the rates are always prime plus 1%. If you're fundable, it could be more, and you can say no. But the bottom line is, this is the cheap, bank money is the cheapest money on the planet, except for mortgages, okay? So what we have to do here is decide, do we want that money? But it is free for the taking if they offer it to you. And that's what we're going to talk about. So that's what we're talking about, is a credit limit increase without even asking for it. Now we discovered the key to unlock the secret to business funding because a few years ago, I had the opportunity of being invited to FICO World. Think of FICO World as the Mount Olympus of the credit and funding approval gods. And I met the CEO, Will Lansing, and after a powerful conversation about how we help borrowers become fundable, he set me up with his FICO team, who actually build the software that create those 3-digit credit scores. Those meetings gave me, and now you, access to lender underwriting approval criteria. And I'm going to expose one of the biggest lies about credit scores tonight. But in that incredible opportunity, we built a step-by-step simple system. It's just turning the dials. This is not hard, and it is simple. But we can help you change those dials, sighting in that rifle so that your borrower behaviors are what we call a bullseye borrower, or where you pass lending criteria muster. Now, those lender guidelines, I'm telling you, this process works for every single real estate investor or business entrepreneur who implements the steps. Now, that became a blueprint, and I've devoted my life to creating this blueprint so that we could make anybody who engaged with us highly fundable. And these are big money approvals. These are partner approvals. These are $50,000, usually minimum $50,000 to $100,000 per bank. And whatever banks happen to be in your area, we can build the relationships necessary to get those approvals, because they trust your borrower behaviors far more than they trust full documentation. So I'd like to share with you one of our real estate investors, and one of the biggest early wins we had was our client, Teresa. She went out and proved this model and made it work perfectly. Check this out.
I did what you said to do. just a couple of things, and my score went up 30 points right away. And so within 6 months, my score went up over 100, and I was already in the 700. So my score's nearly perfect now. And they all line up, and I was able to achieve, a $500,000 unsecured line of credit my first time out of the gate with my first bank. So that really put me in a position to change the game that I'm executing to change my retirement strategy. And in fact, I actually used the line of credit recently for the first time, so it put me into $1 million asset that I would not have been able to secure. And in fact, the bank, I was putting all the documentation together, and they called me and said, okay, we're done. And I said, don't you want the paperwork? And
Listen
they
to
said,
this.
no, your credit score is fine. In fact, it's unusually fine, so we're just going to give it to you. We don't need any more paper, and it'll be an unsecured line of credit. So $500,000, please.
No documentation for a $500,000 loan. Why? Because her credit profile was unusually fine. It was hitting the check boxes. You guys, I don't know what the mix of your demographic is, but there's a lot of engineers here listening, right? There's a lot of technically competent and genius people who know what an if-then-else algorithm is going to be all about. That's what borrower behaviors are all about. If then, else. And that is what, if you know what those criteria are, you can optimize your profile to hit those lending bullseye. It's so much so, Teresa's certainly not alone, because we have had since just before COVID, we've had over 250 million in these very approvals, most of them from real estate investors, right? So Teresa's not alone in getting these results. Now, I discovered this, it didn't come easy, right? And the good news is, because you're here today, you get to at least check in and see how easy it can be, because I've compressed the time. I've been doing this for 30 years. And I've taken all those years of trial and error to share with you what exactly works. I am my own crash test dummy. You guys know those impact points everywhere. I've literally run myself into the funding walls so that you don't have to. But the number one thing that I discovered in putting this blueprint together, in putting this process together, is that you have to stop stepping on the funding landmines. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you some of the big illusions, myths, misrepresentations that are out there, and how you have been foiled in your funding attempts and what to do about it, right? So let's take a look at first of all, the big beliefs that exist out there, right? And yes, Glenn, I'm talking about macro environmental. That 250 is just before COVID. That's COVID lending. That's COVID now. I've got another example of a gentleman in 4 months, $150,000 between 3 banks, all which will grow to 100 grand. The point is that bullseye borrowing does not have anything to do with the macroeconomic environment. Lenders are going to trust their partner borrowers based on your borrower behaviors, period. It has never been different. In fact, in 2008, there was only a 6-month with all the catastrophic process. They weren't lending to partners for only 4 months. In that catastrophic environment, only 4 months did they kind of pull back to see what was going to happen. And that was because their reserves were shrinking, which we're going to cover in just a moment. So after 25 years, 3 recessions, most of you don't know why your business isn't fundable. You don't know how lender priorities, what the lender priorities are to get approved. You believe you need full documentation to get top tier bank money, which is the cheapest money, or you have to suffer with the soul killing alternative lenders. Hard money, have you noticed hard money is evaporated in many environments because they don't even trust the markets. That's why that's how we decide. Those borrower behaviors are created to support the lender's underwriting criteria. So let me break here for just a second. You guys are software and hardware developers, so this is easy. Think of it this
time. Oh, I was going to say, is it a good time for me to jump in with a couple of questions?
Absolutely.
All right, we've got Glenn who's saying, when lending is cheap and easy, you're saying it's independent of macroeconomic forces? Question mark.
Yes. So when I see the questions come up, I've gone through to speak to those. Yes.
Okay.
Bullseye borrowing is meeting the partner lender underwriting criteria. And that's why I said in 2008, in that total catastrophic environment, only 4 months did they seize up all lending. But the second they opened it back up, it went to partner borrowers.
All right. And Bola is asking, once I get this line of credit, what can I use it for?
Oh, you can use it for anything that's in your business. In fact, I'm going to show you a borrowing environment where you create a qualified fundable entity. We call it a QFE. It is an entity that is designed to attract this very lender money because they want to see lots of P&L. They don't want assets, or they're going to tap those assets. We're looking for unsecured stated income business loans and lines of credit. So we create this entity, easy to do. Create this entity, and then you lend to all what we call client companies, all of your engagements, all of your real estate deals. You're the bank, because many times they're not going to lend to your deals because they don't trust the deal. They don't get to underwrite the deal. But if you qualify for these funds based on your borrower behaviors, then they give you that money, and then you get to use that money for you don't even have to disclose what the use of funds are. Most of it is operational costs and business marketing, growth, etc. So so the answer is you can use your funds for anything you wish, hopefully legal. And then what are the borrower behaviors? We'll get to that, Don. I promise you will not leave disappointed. Okay. So most people believe you have no control over your funding approvals, but let's take a look at how that works. So for 500 years, lenders have had written manual underwriting procedures. With the advent of FICO and a big data and the opportunity, in my conversation with the CEO of FICO, Will Lansing, he goes, you know what? I can't predict what Merrill Chandler is going to do, but I can predict to within 1% of what 1,000 Merrill Chandlers are going to do. And I thought that was just fascinating. So the point is, those borrower behaviors have proven a powerful, dependable a data set for them to evaluate whether they give us money. So let's say they translated all of these rules to software, translated all of the approval rules to software. If then else. If you meet those, you get approved. Well, then who is in charge of your funding approvals? I'd like to see your answers. Who is in charge of your funding approvals if you know what the software is looking for? Anybody? Who's in charge of your approvals if you know what the software checkboxes? You are, Dennis. That is correct. Not the software. The software is evaluating you. You are in charge. Thank you, Karthik. You are in charge of your fundability and your ability to get those approvals. 100%. You just have to check off the boxes. I'm going to show you the boxes here in a moment. Would that be okay if I showed you the boxes? All right. So let's go. Let's take a look at 3 secrets, because I got to blaze through here, guys. Let's look at 3 secrets. First of all, one of the massive things we have to understand is that there are fake credit scores, and we call them credit posers or credit imposters because they say that they are a credit score, but because they're relying on your ignorance and your lack of borrower education to understand what they actually, how good they are. Well, the first true gold standard is FICO. Then there is FICO. Now, here's the definition. See if we can all buy in. Okay. I call a FICO score any score that is not used by lenders in the credit approval process. Is that fair? Is that fair? Not used by lenders in the credit approval process. What good is a score if you say, what good is that score if we cannot in any way depend on it being used with lenders? Okay, so there's FICO scores. Now, there is a FICO score that is currently deceiving over 100 million borrowers in the US. Don't raise your hand. Do not tell me that you use Credit Karma for any reason to establish a baseline or evaluation of your credit, because Credit Karma uses a fake score. It's called Vantage 3.0. Vantage 3.0 is not used by lenders to evaluate. In fact, the bait and switch is so egregious that you see, and notice there's only 2 scores, Equifax and TransUnion, because Experian uses only FICO, so they can't use it on the Credit Karma website. Those 2 scores, numerous studies have shown that the FICOs, the Vantage scores are 30 to 60 points higher than your FICO scores. 30 to 60 points higher than your FICO scores. And where the bait and switch engages is that they show you these scores that are 30, 60 points higher, and then they have an offer to the right of those scores. And when you click, check out the offer, and you fill out that application and hit submit, they use a FICO score to evaluate you, not the scores that they're presenting. It is, I've challenged the CEO to come onto my podcast and justify the business, their business strategy here, or this egregious and horrible business behavior. They are taking advantage of borrower ignorance. And now we hearken back to what I said earlier, that borrower education is the single greatest impediment to you being fundable. If you're focusing on a FICO score, you have no chance in hell. Okay, but Credit Karma isn't alone. Privacy Guard, Identity Secure, Free Score, all these different credit, all these different offerings for credit monitoring will take advantage of your ignorance. Now, if you'd like to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about what scores lenders use, please write this down, take a screenshot, myfico.com, myfico.com. Subscribe to this. Get rid of any other, notice there's no link here. I'm not selling this. I'm telling you, get rid of any credit monitoring that is not the full truth. If you subscribe to, let's say, Experian, and they give you 3 scores, there are 31 scores available on myfico.com, 31 scores used by lenders. You will know what every single one of those are, guys. Experian, costing the same amount, only gives you 3. Right? And those are review scores. Those are your soft credit pull scores. They are not the scores used by lenders. All right. Next, myfico.com. Secret number 2. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we've been lied to about what your credit score actually means in the credit approval process. So your approvals are not based on your credit score. They never have, and they never will. So let's take a look at it and then break this down. First of all, some of us would kill for these scores. Robert came to us because he had been denied multiple times for a business line of credit, and no lender would lend to him, but he didn't understand why. But when we got under the hood of his profile, we found out he had a $5,000 credit union card, and you can tell he is a real estate investor. Best Buy, Home Depot, Lowe's, right? This was his profile. So what a high credit score, an 800 plus credit score means, guys, please write this down. You get more of what you already got, not something you don't. For example, with this credit profile, he can go to any retail outlet in the country and get the best retail credit ever because he has an 800 plus credit score associated with a retail low value profile. So he can get more low value cards. And yes, retail cards are low value. But he will never, ever, ever, you will never, ever, 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 ever get a $50,000 business line of credit based on your based on your Lowe's or your Home Depot reputation, you guys. US Bank is not going to give you money on a low value card. Now, Lowe's is bad, is a low value card. It's not bad. It's a low value card on your personal profile. You want a Lowe's commercial account in your business name. Then it doesn't report to your personal profile, and so therefore it doesn't have any negative impact. When you use your Lowe's card on your personal, watch your fundability go down as your score plummets. And every time you pay it off, your score goes back up. And the worst thing the worst thing to lenders is this in your credit score. This is inconsistent borrower behavior. You put all that heavy lifting over on your business and you maintain your personal credit profile as the goose that lays the golden eggs of credit lines, loans, real estate loans, and commercial loans. Okay. So credit scores alone do not get you approved. And tell me, you guys, type yes if you're getting this. Is this making sense? Can you see what this means and how your borrower behaviors impact this? We got Bola and Don and Henry and Jeevan, et cetera. Thank you, guys. Jean-Pierre, Brian, Brooke. All right, now your credit score is used after you're approved. So I got a little time. I'm gonna run through this really quickly. Everybody, if you got a piece of paper you're writing, draw a line halfway through the page, 1/3 up the page, draw a line, describe it, label it as the credit denial threshold. Credit denial threshold. Let's put a 719 next to that line. Credit. So what we're saying, it's not this way for every bank. Every bank has their own. Some may be 695, some may be 740. But look, we're just going to use an example here. That line is your credit denial threshold. If you are receiving credit offers in the mail, email, phone calls, etc., it means that your credit score for the corresponding credit bureau is above the denial threshold. That's all it means. And how many of us have gone for, maybe gotten approved, maybe, and so the illusion continues if you're approved, but then we get disappointed if we submit an application from one of our credit offers and we get denied. We're like, hold it, but you just told me that I'm pre-approved, right? We know the manipulation of the language, but I'm going to explain what's happening here so you can protect your profile during this recession. Number one, your credit score is used for that denial decision. Are they worth exploring as a borrower, or do we get them out of our space? Right? That's all the denial threshold score is about. And so they send you, because you pass that denial threshold, you're above that denial threshold, they will send you offers because you're worth exploring. They don't know if you're fundable. They don't know if you're going to get approved until they check your borrower behaviors. But FICO doesn't check your borrower behaviors, you guys. Lender underwriting software does. So the second you are past that threshold. Yep, let's consider them. It kicks over to lender underwriting software. The lender underwriting software measures 40 borrower behaviors, 40 borrower behaviors. And then the lending software, excluding any impact from the credit score, it just got you there. It got you in the ring. Those 40 borrower behaviors get you approved or denied. Once you're up, let's say you're approved, denial letter goes out if you're denied. An approval letter comes out, but then they say, well, how much should we lend to them? It goes back to the FICO credit score, because the FICO is a risk analysis, right? Not an approval analysis, a risk analysis. How much money should we give this borrower? And so if you're a 721, means you barely got past the threshold. But if you're a 721, let's say you get a $2,000 or $3,000 approval. If you're an 821, you get a $20,000 or $30,000 approval. Type yes if you are getting this, you guys. Type yes if this is making sense. You have never been approved with your credit score, ever. But now it makes sense if you have been denied and you have a high credit score because your borrower behaviors weren't in line. Is this making sense? Everybody with me? Bola says yes. So William says yes. Manisha, thank you. Okay. Your fundability is what gets you the approval. And of course, as we've said, over 90% of all personal business credit approvals rely on data from FICO. And FICO is the gold standard for evaluating risk. Lenders establish whether or not to approve you. FICO helps them assess how much to give you. Now, why does this matter that I have a seat at the FICO and lender underwriting table? Well, because it means that I get to bring everything I learn about you getting approved home to you. The whole point of this presentation is all of the things that I have learned from sitting at this table. So if approvals are all about your fundability, then what is your fundability based on? Well, that takes us to our third secret. The right borrower behaviors get you approved, right? These borrower behaviors, when you don't know the right borrower behaviors, remember earlier, these are the pre-approvals. Not knowing the right behaviors, they might just get you some high interest and low amount approvals, right? Not knowing the right behaviors gets you no approvals and lowered credit limits or closed accounts during financially stressful times. Knowing the right behaviors gets you partner approvals with low interest and high approval amounts, right? And knowing those right behaviors keeps you in any economy to be able to grow your business. Even when lenders start shrinking their funding target, you still keep hitting that funding bullseye. Now, what borrower behaviors make you fundable? Whoa, let's take a look at a couple of them. You don't need to take a screenshot of this. I'm going to give you a copy. All right. First of all, FICO grades 40 borrower behaviors. Only 10 measure derogatory listings, which means there are 30 ways you can optimize your fundability and increase your credit score so you get approvals and high amounts, even if you have derogatory listings. So like too many accounts with balances. Well, how many is too many, right? Amount owed on revolving accounts is too high. What does that mean? How much is too high, right? Number of established accounts. Do you have 3 accounts? Do you have 30 accounts, right? So would it be okay with you if I over deliver? Anybody in? Please go to Get Fundable Behaviors, and I'm going to give you the pool of 150 borrower behaviors that FICO and lenders draw from when they build their underwriting software. Now, those 150, the beauty of that is everything is optimizable. Everything, that's FICO's favorite word. Everything can be optimized. And so the borrower behaviors that you currently can be turned around within even as little as 3 months to create fundability. All right. So getfundablebehaviors.com. optimized for all 150 borrow behaviors. That means it doesn't matter which lender you go to, you're dialed, right? The top 40 banks in this country, that what are called top tier, tier 1 and tier 2 banks, all draw from this pool of 150. Woo! All right. We all learned something today, guys. Type yes if you learned something new today, right? Oh, thank you for spending your lunch with me. Right? There's a whole lot available here. Now, the question is, imagine, thank you guys for sharing, Manish and Bola and Jean-Pierre, Danielle, Jeevan. What would if you could get $100,000 per bank, and it started at 50 to 75 and grew through automatic limit increases, what would that do for your real estate environment, right? What would it do to improve your quality of life and or your standard of living? So for those of you who are ready to take things to the next level, I have a business funding master course, and that business funding master course, actually, Glenn, the answer is an unequivocal yes, because right now you and most of humanity do have no clue why you're being approved, and I know exactly why you are being denied or approved, and you can dial in. So let me share with you, it would be arrogant to say if it weren't true. So let me share with you Robert, who is a real estate investor, very similar circumstances. Take a look at what he has to say.
Since starting with the program, my personal credit score has gone up over 150 points. One of the things that I was absolutely astonished by was how easy it was when I walked into the bank and just asked for a sizable line of credit. And it was the easiest application to fill out, and it was the least amount of hassle and interrogation. I provided absolutely no documentation, and I was able to 2 or 3 days later get, a confirmation that they had approved the lines of credit for both of them.
I could not believe it, Merrill. I couldn't believe it. I'm sitting there. The guy pops up on the computer as he's, entering the data, and he's like, "You qualify for a $20,000 line of credit card, a business credit card."
That doesn't report.
I said, "Yeah, you know what? Let's do it." He said, "There's no credit pulls. There's no way." I'm like, "Yeah, let's do that." Then he goes a little bit further. They're saying that you qualify for up to $100,000 line of credit. Would you like to do that? Yes. Yes, I do. Next thing you know, $50,000 they approved. That's awesome. That day that they pulled the credit, they use Experian. My Experian credit score that day was 848. There it is. It was like perfect.
The point of sharing this is, besides it being awesome, $150,000 in 4 months, that he was going to set up his third relationship. Remember, he got 50 from one bank, 50 from another, same day. And then he was going to set up a brand new business checking account for his QFE, that entity that I shared with you that we optimize for business borrowing. He comes and he sits down to open up a checking account. They collect the data, and that's what he's talking about. They're collecting data, haven't pulled a credit report, nothing. Collecting data for his checking account, and that's when the computer software came up and said, you qualify without an inquiry, $20,000 business credit card. Then they filled out the business credit card information, which has more information on his personal income, business income, time in business, and as he pulled it, filled out that application, it triggered an additional response saying, yes, we have the opportunity. You have the opportunity. You have to do a hard inquiry, but they're up to $100,000 and they approved him for 50. He hadn't even built the relationship with the bank yet, and he was approved for $70,000. Anybody like that kind of relationship building skills with a bank, right? That is what we're talking about.
Hey,
And
Merrill, we've got a 3-minute warning.
okay,
Just to let you know.
so yes, the QFE is simply a qualified fundable entity and an LLC. It could be a C corp, or it could be a LLC filing as an S corp. There's a number of solves there, but yes, that is exactly what we're talking about. So the thing to finish on, you guys, if you go to my website, it's valued at $23,686 to buy the different courses that you get with this. Our regular is $997. But if you go to myfundingsystem.com and put in the funding code club54, one word, club54, it's 50% off. So that takes care of your question. Depends. Henry says depends, could be good or bad depending on the investment. This is $500, you guys. When you go to the order page, there's your $997. You put in the promo code, hit apply, and complete the purchase. And you're done. So, any questions that I can assist you with in our 1 minute and 30 seconds?
Ain is mentioning that they got an Intel AMX card. Does this affect my credit score? I didn't see a credit pull when the card was issued.
So because you are Intel employee or contractor, you're likely to get certain benefits as a result. It is what's called a co-branded card. And so the person co-branding it, hence Intel, may have created a certain underwriting guideline assistance for you to be approved. There wasn't a credit pull because the likelihood of employment may be high, for et cetera, et cetera. Now, the question is it reporting to your personal profile? Then we know it's not a business card. And then there are some things that we can optimize for. We optimize business cards differently than personal cards.
Yep. All right, everybody, we are out. Well,
Bola had a really quick question.
Yep.
This can be, I've had people finish this in 3 weeks at an hour a day. There's approximately, depending on how deep you go into it, because by the way, it includes all the software, the spreadsheets necessary to optimize your business and prepare it for funding. Also included in this, that $29.99 a month is you being able to attend Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have live Q&A sessions for your fundability where I help you. I answer your particular questions. I do not leave you without support. This is live support from me. Every once in a while, if I'm on a plane, it'll be from a team member, but we are here to help you succeed.
All right,
thank you,
everybody.
Glenn. That's very thoughtful.
Can you take yourselves off mute and thank Merrill for coming in and sharing with us today?
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Merrill.
Thanks, guys. Hope
Thank
you
you.
learned something. I'd love to see you. I'd love to see you on Tuesdays and Thursdays, guys. This is a lot of fun when we're hacking fundability. So it is a blast to be able to know what you're doing on the inside. Love to have you there.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. And next week we have an open group discussion, or I may actually come in and say a couple of words about what I'll be doing when I leave Intel. So that'll be next week, and I look forward to seeing you all there.
Thank you, Merrill. And Daniel, welcome to the dark side. Congrats.
Right, I have to give back my Amex card. I forgot.
Yeah, there you go. That may not be a bad thing. More on that later. All right, guys, have a wonderful weekend and happy Easter for those that it cares for.
And happy Passover too.
And Passover. There we go.